Very good afternoon, the whole country. This is Ericah Shafudah, Minister of Finance, Republic of Namibia. Yes, let me explain to the public the mandate of the Minister of Finance. The mandate of the Minister of Finance is informed by the Constitution of Namibia. There is an article that talks to how government assets should be managed. Further to that, there is another article, which is Article 125, that talks to the money that we collect from all the taxpayers. Where should it be deposited? This money goes into the State Revenue Fund, and for us to be able to spend it, it has again to be appropriated for. It has to be by way of an act of parliament that enables us then to spend the money that was then deposited in the State Revenue Fund. So for the scholars out there, if you go to the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia, kindly read Article 124 that talks to the government assets, how we should manage the government assets. Go to 125 that talks to the State Revenue Fund, and Article 126 that talks to the appropriations, how this money should be now allocated to the votes, that is offices, ministries and agencies for various programs, and then they should also be so that everybody else should know how much money is allocated to which ministry. So that is provided for by Article 126 of the Constitution. Now, why do I speak all this? Is because the mandate of the Ministry of Finance helps then the government to execute projects and programs and projects that in turn contribute to the growing of the economy of our country, building schools, building clinics, building the roads. So all that falls under the mandate of the Ministry of Finance, because we are the ones who then allocate the money according to offices, ministries and agencies. Now, when you are allocated money, these are public monies that I'm talking about, you have to be again responsible, bear that responsibility of telling the public, how have you used this money that government gave you to execute programs and projects? So we have then to compile what we call an accountability report, asking each one of the ministries, offices and agencies, what have they used the money that they were allocated to them? Which programs and projects were implemented? How many employment were created through the implementation of those projects? So they have to account, or all of us have to account for the money that was allocated by the government to each one of our respective votes. Right? And that's very good, because that is also enhancing the transparency component of what I'm talking about, because we have to make sure that we are transparent in all our dealings, in the way how we execute the projects, in the way how we are spending the money. And because we are so transparent, even if nobody's looking at us, we need to be able to explain how this money that was allocated to our votes has been spent. So transparency and accountability are core critical principles or values of the government, and all of us have to ascribe to these principles, because we are using public funds and we have to account to the public in a very transparent manner. Now, I have spoken very much about money allocated to the offices, ministries and agencies, or the votes. But there is a process that is to be undertaken, and this is the budgeting process. That's to say, the Ministry of Finance will issue a circular on how the budget will be formulated in a particular financial year. And the ministries, offices and agencies will then be guided on how to prepare their spending proposals that will be submitted to the Ministry of Finance for consideration in the context of operational budget, or to the National Planning Commission if they are asking money for the implementation of capital projects. Now, once those spending proposals are submitted either to the National Planning Commission or to the Ministry of Finance, then an appraisal process has now to come in. So we have sector officials who do the assessment of these spending proposals. Then they will make a recommendation as to how much money should be allocated to each one of the ministries, offices and agencies. Then we will have a session that we call budget hearings. That's not to say each one of the offices, ministries and agencies will be called to a joint hearing that is conducted by the National Planning Commission and Ministry of Finance at the level of the Director General and the Minister of Finance and our technical teams. So the ministers will also come with their technical teams, their EDs and all other technical teams to come and then defend why do they need to be allocated so much money for a particular program or a project before then the National Planning Commission and Ministry of Finance. After we have listened to the motivations by all the ministries, offices and agencies, then we compile a submission to Cabinet to recommend what we call ceilings, meaning the amount that you cannot exceed. That is why it's called a ceiling. Just like the roof, when you have your house, there's a ceiling, right? In the context of budgeting, it means when I give you that amount, do not exceed it. So it is a ceiling. So these ceilings are then discussed at the cabinet level, and with the recommendation by or endorsement by the cabinet, a budget is then now prepared to be tabled in the National Assembly or Parliament, but first we start with the National Assembly for the considerations. It is debated back and forth, and once Parliament has approved it, it then goes to the National Council again for review. If all is good, then it is recommended to the President for this bill now to be enacted into the law. And thereafter, all the offices, ministries and the agencies will now start spending as per the Appropriation Act, by that law that enables now the ministries to be spending the money that is allocated to them. But I also need to explain that because the process of debating the budget in Parliament takes some few months, if I can put it that way, maybe 2 or maximum 3, the law, the State Finance Act, makes provision for offices, ministries and agencies to continue spending. We call it continuation authorization, so that the government programs do not get disrupted while the budget is being debated in Parliament. So the system is so good in the sense that it allows the continuity of the programs and projects of the government to continue while the budget is being debated. So we call that one continuation authorization, and it's calculated maybe technically that a third of what were allocated in the previous financial year, you can make use of it until then the budget is approved. So that is how the process starts, from the planning through to the approval of the budget, through to the implementation, and then the ministries, as they are implementing their programs and projects, they need to be monitored. Yeah, so the Parliament can monitor the activities, Ministry of Finance can monitor, National Planning Commission can also monitor, and the ministries themselves also have their units that monitor progress on how the money allocated to them is being spent and what is the impact that the money is making in the whole economy. Now, the government has passed, or the Parliament has passed the Procurement Act. And the Procurement Act has made provision for various structures to ensure the execution or the implementation of the Act. We have the structures, you might believe the nation has heard of the Procurement Policy Unit. That is basically the one that talks to the policy aspects, assisting the minister in that context. Then you have the Central Procurement Board, again the board that is to adjudicate for tenders above certain thresholds. Then you have below that threshold the structures in the public entities, offices, ministries, and SOEs. They also have their internal procurement structures. Now, that is good in the sense that it allows for checks and balances, and if there is any doubt by any bidder or a tenderer, then we have made provision for, again, a procurement policy or review panel that hears the complaints of the bidders. So the Procurement Act has really made provision for structures where the bidders can have their views heard and so forth. But like any other act, as you are implementing it, you might come to the realization of the need for it either to be amended or to be repealed. Now, we have realized that our Procurement Act has some few areas that need to be improved on, and as a result, in terms of bringing efficiency in the process, we have realized that these manual processes that we have all over, and in the modern world, we need to work with technology. So we are considering to introduce an electronic procurement system. That is one of the reforms that we would want to bring about to ensure efficiency in the processes. Again, in terms of monitoring the impact of the procurement. In other words, if the act is put in place to empower the local businesses, people and so forth, or businesses, how far have we progressed? So that electronic procurement system will also capture the data on the impact of our procurement system. But we have also realized that empowering the locals has not really come in handy. As a matter of fact, the small medium enterprises seem to be saying they are not benefiting that much. So we are also looking at that. Again, we have been hearing concerns of how much has been spent on some specific projects that seem not to bring about value for money and so forth. All these are areas that we are looking at as part of the reform. I believe that as we are progressing with the reforms, we are going to consult, and we have started to consult already anyway, so that when we are repealing the Procurement Act, is with the inputs of the Namibian people, especially those ones who would want to see the benefits coming out of this Procurement Act, as per the intent of empowering Namibian businesses and so forth. Therefore, local sourcing, like you have said, we want to emphasize it, and we want to see it delivering the impact as per the intent of the Act. Okay, in terms of the VAT Act, in fact, let me start this way. The income tax, the policy aspect is under the ambit of the Minister of Finance. The administration of tax laws, customs and excise laws, that one is under the Namibia Revenue Agency. Of course, when they are administering the laws, we also have to keep an eye on how they are doing it. We have been hearing concerns from taxpayers. That is to say that it takes quite a time for their refunds to be processed, and this is one of the areas that we have discussed with NAMRA to ensure that we don't keep other people's money, because if we keep that, then it holds up also the flow of the money into the economy. We have then agreed with NAMRA to look into the turnaround time. Before, they used to have like 60 to 90 days. Now they are moving very, very fast to ensure that they bring the turnaround time in the span of 30 days, and that will be very positive. Not that it's the best, but that is the target that they are aiming at. Perhaps with that, we will then see less concerns raised by our taxpayers in as far as VAT refunds are concerned. So we are doing very well for now, because we are listening to the concerns of the public, and we are coming up with we are devising strategies to listen to their concerns. That's basically in terms of the VAT refunds administration. But I also just want to add, because this is an opportunity for me also to explain, that is to say, the taxpayers are our people. and the NAMRA officials are equally the people of Namibia. So we need to be working together so that then when we collect what is due to the state, we do it with happy faces, and the taxpayers, when they also honor their financial obligations towards the state, they also do it in a happy manner. So together, if we join hands, both the taxpayers and the ones who are administering the tax laws, we will make it. For we need to build schools, we need to build roads, we need to build clinics, and we can only do that if we honor our financial obligations in terms of tax payments. And of course, NAMRA, you should also process the VAT refunds of the taxpayers on time. When I was referring to the mandate of the Ministry of Finance, I mentioned about mobilizing resources to finance government programs. Now, we all know that Namibia is faced with a triple burden of inequalities, burden of poverty, burden of unemployment, and specifically youth unemployment. Data has it that around 44% of unemployment is really to the youth. And as a responsible government, we then reflected as we were compiling the budget. And this is an aspiration that has come from previous years. If we were to go a little bit on politics, I would say when the SWAPO manifesto was being crafted, the youth empowerment was already one of the aspirations by then. And now it is again crafted or outlined in the Namibia Development Plan number 6. As we were then compiling the budget for 2025-2026, we asked ourselves, how can we really support the youth technically and financially so that they can see that we are having the youth at heart? And I speak this one with passion because it's really one of the flagship projects that I would want to see delivering results in as far as empowering the youth through their enterprises concerned. We then allocated 257 million Namibian dollars for 2025-2026 financial year. And we asked ourselves, what is the definition of youth again? Then we were told, from 18 to 35. As you were now trying to engage here and there, the youth got a wind that it is only those ones in the range of 18 to 35 years. Then they said, no, wait a second. Well, how about us? Because, those ones are very young, too young to manage all these enterprises worth 257 million. We listened, because it's a responsible government and it listens very carefully to the advice, especially from the youth. Then we said, okay, what will be then that range that you are proposing? Maybe 45. Now, so as I'm talking, we have listened and the age has now been revisited and it's now from 18 to 45. So if you are within that range, no more beyond the 45, 18 to 45, you can now come up with your proposals. Come up with the proposals because the youth are very creative in nature and we would want them to demonstrate their potentials through this National Development Fund. You compile your proposal, you submit it to your regional governor. We have 3 development financial institutions to which then these applications will be channeled. We have the Development Bank of Namibia, the Agri-Bank, and the Environment Investment Fund. Once we have assessed these sectors, or depending on which sector you have applied for, your applications will be clustered. These ones will go to DBN, these other ones will go to Agri-Bank, and these other ones will go to Environmental Investment Fund. Now, we did not want just to talk, because the youth will say, you just talk promises and we don't see anything happening. We said when we are going to launch the youth fund, we are going to launch it in style. So there were already applications that were called, right? And they were assessed by the development financial institutions, these 3 institutions that I have mentioned. And I want the youth now to memorize these 3 institutions. When I speak, I say DFIs because we like abbreviations, but basically it's the development financial institutions. And when we hear that one, have in mind Agri-Bank, DBN, that's Development Bank of Namibia, and EIF, that is Environmental Investment Fund. So they have received in total 11,475 applications. But because the youth were just so happy, some of them just threw in anything. It's okay, it's natural. But then 42 of these applications, we wanted them to launch the fund. 3 per region, right? So on the 29th of September 2025, we launched the fund. The awardees were 42, 3 from each one of the regions, and they were already informed that their applications were successful, and I believe they are now undergoing training before the disbursement of the money is then made. But we have not ended there, because some youth had thought, 42, that is the end of the world. No, 42 applications were approved to launch the project, to say we are not launching by word, but we are launching by actions. Now the other 11,433 that are remaining, the DFIs are busy, and I have heard that on Friday they made another announcement of additional applications that were approved, and they will continue until all of them are approved, are assessed. Now, in the event that they have come to the realization that there are some applications that are not up to stage, they will be referred back for refinement and so forth. Again, then they say there will be a second call. In December, there will be a second call. So the youth between the age of 18 to 45, prepare yourselves so that when you hear there is that call, it will be widely announced, also through the Office of the Governors. Then you prepare your proposals very, very well. Then you send them through your governors, and they will go to the DFIs. Now, one thing, because this is a flagship project, and I like to explain it with passion. So, already I have spoken about the age limit. I should also mention that if there is a financial product that does not require collateral, it's this one. Yeah, I can already see the young people are already smiling. If there is a financial product that does not require any collateral, it's this one. It only needs your brain, right? And the way how you do your application, business plan, and then you submit. Number 2 or number 3, if your company is not yet registered with BIPA, no worries. You do your submission. When the DFI says the light is now green, that means your project is almost approved. Then is when you will be told to go now and register with BIPA. So because we do not want to waste your time, no, we want to work with you so that then all will be fine. Again, the interest rate highest is 4%. Where have you had an interest of 4% in this world, right? So in other words, from 60,000 to 200, I think is 2%. Then from 200 to 1 million or so is 3%, and beyond 1 million is then 4%. So this is the beauty of this National Youth Development Fund. It is a fund that will be there for 5 years, and who knows, maybe also beyond. So the chapter is not closed because your application has not been approved. Just refine it and continue applying when you hear their calls by the DFIs. So we are also going to monitor how you are progressing, the young ones. We would want you to grow. Start up, then you build your enterprise, and who knows, you scale up. And by the time I see you have created so much jobs, or so many jobs, you are also then starting to pay your taxes. Because at the end, what you are getting, you should also plow back. Thank you so much.